And well, today is Memorial Day. So it's a time we do this every year. We've had guests on where we've gone around the table. We're not going to do that this year. I'm still going to, so everybody talks about, happy Memorial Day, whatever. The semantics of whether you can say whatever you want. It does not matter. The whole point of Memorial Day is that we take a minute and remember the fallen that paid the ultimate sacrifice of their lives for our freedom, in support of the Constitution of the United States, defending against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So I'm wearing the Folds of Honor shirt because they support the fallen, the families of the fallen with educational scholarships. We highly recommend them. We love Noonan. Noonan's been on the show. For me, one of my first experiences with that was David Jenks Mitchell, March 14th, 2008. Good friend of mine was killed in the B course doing dogfighting training. And then a month later, Bama Blair Faulkner, who was kind of a mentor to me, A-10 guy who had gone to T-38s after the squadron closed, and he was killed in a T-38 training accident. And then, not too long, a year later in June, Ice Houghton, who was a guy I knew from a class junior to me. But you and I both know Cabby. We've talked about Cabby on the show, who was a Marine Hornet pilot that was killed. I believe it was Spatial D coming out of the weather. And, it's just a time that we take to, just go, hey, we recognize the sacrifice. It's for the families a lot too, because, right, everybody thinks about stuff like this. We just talked about it with a buddy of mine when he was killed in the sheriff's office, Grant Candies. And, and I'm wearing the wristband there, but the first week, it's overwhelming to the families. Everybody, it's this, and this, and then it kind of just trickles away. And then 3-month point's the hardest point because it's like everybody just left, everybody just forgot. So even if we should do this more than just the one day a year, but especially today, I think it's important that we take a moment. Gonky, what do you think, man?
Yeah, man. I mean, I mentioned Beefcake and 11 back in April. I was one of Jeff Koos's instructors. He was a Blue Angel that was killed in 2016, and same thing with J-Tax Walker. He was killed in 2019 in Star Wars Canyon. I mean, the crazy. That's not crazy. The thing is with me is every single one of these individuals, and that Mover and I just know fighter pilots, right? But we're talking all veterans. They all have a story, man. And it's just tragic that, to have freedom like this, we've had, in my mind, a lot of loss. I mean, here in Ohio, past couple of days has been beautiful, and I'm enjoying the freedom that, those heroes have provided. And, I think about them, I even think about them on my bad days. Cause guess what? My bad day is not so bad once I start thinking about, what their families are going through. And, Mover, you bring up the fact that it's hard on the families. And if you're active duty or a service member and you're listening to this show, I mean, I brought it up before that, I handle the affairs of 11. And, if you're still a service member, it's super important to make sure that all your death benefit stuff is squared away. If you're recently divorced, or if you're divorced and recently remarried, go make sure all that stuff is going to who you want it to go to, because all those things can just make an already tragic situation even more devastating, when money goes to the wrong places, benefits go to the wrong people. It's not good. So it's a good idea, especially if you're a service member, just to make sure that all your paperwork's in order, just in case something happens to you, because you never know. Those guys didn't know, when they strapped in the airplane that day, that was going to be the end for them. So, but yeah, it's a time to remember, man. And I like to think that those guys would want you to have, and gals who have died for our freedom, would want you to have a cheerful and a positive outlook on the freedom that, America still stands for today. So, I mean, I think it's okay if you go out and have a barbecue, man. But,
yeah, absolutely. Doug, you got anything on this?
Yeah, I'd like to show everybody this picture. This is from the United States Air Force. Well, it's the Museum of the United States Air Force now is the official title.
That's
I
awesome.
was there a few years back. I don't know if everybody knows what that is. There's a formation called the Missing Man Formation, where in memoriam of fallen pilots, they fly by, and then I guess is it number 2 or number 1 who pulls up out of the formation? Three pulls up out of the formation.
3 pulls,
toward the
4
sky.
stays, three pulls, 2 stays. I've been 4 in that formation, and that's
I've seen that at numerous air shows over the years, and it just never fails. And that overall display is in memoriam of fallen Air Force pilots, most of whom got the Medal of Honor. And when you stand just right, you see those names and those planes, and it's just chokes you up.
Wow.
It's great. It's
That's
a great
awesome.
display for something that's very, very sad.
Where's that at again?
Dayton, right, Pat? It's at the Air Force
right
Museum.
down the road from you.
Ohio's a large state.
Yeah, it is.
It's a small country of Ohio.
Ohio is like 9 hours of the 15-hour trip to go see my parents.
Valid.
But it's a
small
beautiful
country.
display that they put up, and it really evokes the ceremony that goes with that formation.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a missing man?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, dude, I've done I've done 2. I don't remember one of them. Standard flyby stuff where we were trying to make up time, so we were going too fast. And dude, when he pulled, it was like a 9G pull. I mean, because he's flying off a 1, so he's like, okay, I'm gonna make this look good. And he just squats the jet. And I'm like, holy crap, because it's 4, you have to maintain perfect, like that missing man, right? That's the whole point is, whatever. And yeah, he was hauling. We were hauling so much. But
do you remember where it was?
Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a. Sorry, go ahead.
No, because one of them we had done was, it was a funeral. I forgot what they had done to warrant it. I should know this, but like we flew from Homestead, hit tankers to go do this. And I remember because I was like, man, it's beautiful out here. Because, all the fall and rolling hills and stuff. I'm like, I've never flown around here. This is all beautiful. And then when we, hit the tanker, because we had to meet him in the AR tracks, came back, and, I think the tanker kind of pushed us a little late because I want to blame the tanker guys just because. So
not enough watches.
Trying to make time. And, he just about he ended up, because you're only supposed to, they give you an altitude block, right? ATC, and he just blitzed right, to the moon. But yeah, I don't do that. Was like 2010, 2009.
Yeah. I mean, I did a funeral, but it wasn't missing man. I mean, the guy would certainly, it's Admiral Jackson. He had 5 kills and he was in Pearl Harbor, but yeah, he just got a regular flyby, I guess.
So for, if you get an air-to-air kill, you automatically get a missing man formation. Like Shanghai, God forbid something ever happens to him,
right?
You get a missing man formation for that. There's like a criteria, killed in air combat or aerial stuff. There's a whole bunch of things. They did one for Jinx.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did the command do it? Like the
base? Yeah, the base did it.
Yeah,
the F-16s. That was back when Luke was all Vipers. Yeah, dude. You talk about the dangerous side of this business, and I think it's important because we have a lot of people that are interested in aviation and interested in following in the footsteps, and you need to know the realities. I mean, when I first started, they talked about you're going to know somebody. You're going to know somebody. I mean, you will know somebody, and that is 100% fact. Whether it's directly, with Jenks, where I was in the squadron that day making popcorn, and we made a run to the exchange, and we got locked down and said, turn in your phones, don't talk to anybody. This is bad. And we start going through the processes of, oh, well, hopefully he's just sitting on a rock, waiting to get picked up, to, oh God, he's gone, and having to make that notification, going and spending time with his family. And I think that it's important for somebody looking at this to see the reality that, dude, you're signing that blank check. As soon as you, and it's funny, we talk about it. I had somebody message me a DM on Instagram, not a hot chick, Gonky, don't worry. That was, hey, I got an offer to go to the not Naval Academy, to go be an SNA, to actually go to what you did, the OCS process and stuff. And he's like, I think I'm going to accept it, but I'm not sure. I hadn't made the decision. Do you have any advice? And I said, well, here's what T-Bear taught me, or told me, because I did the same thing, right? Everybody has this misconception that when when it's what you want, when you finally get it, that it's hard charging through. But there's that moment, there's that window of time where you're like, should I really go do this? Like, before it's too late, before I sign my life away for the next 10, 15 years, do I want to do this? And I remember asking T-Bear that question because I had just gotten picked up by the unit, and I was going to the because what the unit sponsors sends it up to AFREC, Air Force Reserve Command. They make the final determination, which is almost a rubber stamp. But in that process, before I was like officially committed, I was like, what do I do? And he's like, well, in perfect T-Bear fashion, he's like, you need to go sit on your back porch and you need to think about, do you want to put that uniform on every day? He's like, don't think about the flying. Don't think about anything else. Because all that stuff, as you and I now both are very well aware, can go away. The flying is not a guaranteed anything. But do you want to put on the uniform every day and wear the American flag and all that entails? And if the answer is yes, then press on. And if the answer is no, or maybe, or I don't know, then maybe you just go fly for funsies, with your RV-8 in a formation group somewhere, because we're not just a flying club. We're military that's there to kill people and break their things, which we are going to talk about later with some ads that ran this weekend.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, yes, you can join the military so they pay for your college, but that shouldn't be your number one reason. Even in training. In fact, most of the time, I'd say in training is probably one of the most dangerous.
That's where all the mishaps happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
one of the most dangerous.
War II, like I think they were losing tons of dudes just in training.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny for me, man. I grew up in a foreign country, and I was a Aramco kid. My dad worked for the Saudi oil company. And, so I lived through Desert Storm 91 right there near the big air base. And, I was super gung ho. I always wanted to put on the uniform with the US flag on it. But it really, for me, it wasn't until I got into training, and I had a couple of times where, I almost killed myself, because my thought process when I was in the, just doing the things that all officers do, right? Apply, pass the medical, just go to OTS or OCS, all that's push-ups, sit-ups, in my mind, I'm like, well, I realize this is dangerous, but it's not going to happen to me because I was 20 years old and bulletproof, right? But then when I actually got into the actual, mainly the jet training in Kingsville, T-45 stuff, a couple times, I almost killed myself. That's when I was like, oh, I'm not as good and as bulletproof as I think I am. And, we had a couple of accidents too when I was a student. Luckily, no one was killed, but, they were close. And you start to realize your own mortality. And for me, it kind of refocused the seriousness of the business at hand, because in 2003, when I was in Kingsville as a student, in the ready room, constantly playing were all the fighter fling videos. Like, it was on the big screen up front in the ready room, 24/7. The Tomcat guys had fighter fling freaking like 85 to 2003 going nonstop. And it's all
That's
like,
awesome.
rock. Yeah, it's awesome. Rock music, flybys, like you're just like, yes, But then, serious things happen. And then, like I said, I almost killed myself a couple times. And you're just like, oh, dude, okay. This is, that's the advertisement, but this is actually some serious stuff. So yeah.
It didn't hit me until I had to go to the family of Dave.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when you're doing that, you know, she was pregnant.
Yes. Yeah, dude.
It was a time. It was a time for all of us. So anyway, that's our Memorial Day stuff.
Yes. Thank you.
Which never ends. I mean, we're not just, I'm not just blowing it off that, you know, that's all we're ever going to talk about. Just, it's another day, another holiday. Laura B says, I always think about my friend Chris Lyons, who was killed in Iraq in 2005. He was only 24, had a 3-month-old daughter he never got to hold. He would be 44 now. He joined the Marines after 9/11, and I was a little surprised, but he told me he wanted to fight the terrorists. He's still the kindest, nicest boy. Oh, Jesus. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Thomas says, God bless you, gentlemen, for your service. Gonky, I have an idea for a new kids book, a Where's Wombat search.
I like it.
Creighton says, it is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men live. Remember the fallen. I use that quote a lot talking about stuff like this. Thank you for your service. Yeah. People confuse this day with Veterans Day, which is today. Veterans Day is the discounted. Where is it? Applebee's?
Everywhere.
Yeah. Renee says, Doug, that's beautiful.
Yep.
Crazy Pete says, I'm missing Ryan David, 130 Nav, and my roommate for 4 months and 50 missions in Iraq. Summer 08. He was on MAFS 7, crash fighting a wildfire in 2012. Meet, you were one of the good ones. I'm sorry.
Oh,
man.
wow.
Ethor says, Doug, I was at the Air Force Museum a couple months ago. That display was incredible to see. Renee also says, we live under the very blanket our fallen have died and bled for.
Yep. 100%.
And then Richard says, thankfully, you guys are very much alive, but thank you for your service today. Thank you.
Thank you.